Beautiful Saturday evening, last panel, but we will try to make it as interesting as possible for the viewers. A very power packed day and quite interesting to learn how people are seeing real estate as a different differentiation. Mr. Agarwal, as you mentioned, that let's not commoditize real estate. Vipul was telling us that it is the most expensive product that somebody buys in his life from a occupancy perspective. Now, let me start with you. You had probably a phenomenal experience, 4 decades of family business, seen many cycles, large pipeline of residential and commercial assets, and today one of the most valuable land holdings driven by location advantages. Where do you see this market in terms of overall markets bouncing back to pre-pandemic levels? You could focus on maybe residential and commercial both, since you have a fair amount of exposure in both asset classes. What's your perspective on this space?
Hi, firstly, thank you, Gautam, and to all the panelists over here. Yes, I've been hearing a lot of great sessions, and I completely agree with Mr. Agarwal that my view is very clear that the residential and the commercial. I mean, I would say overall as a real estate market, it is looking very buoyant and positive. And it is very evident, if you go to see that when like last year when we all went into this pandemic mode and complete lockdown and everything was shut. Beyond the first month, sorry, I don't think any of the developers were. It was per se they were like obviously we all were like sitting at our homes, but every one of us were doing businesses. So this shows the importance of homes. This shows the importance of real estate, and every one of us, probably any developer from any part of Bombay or any part of India, wherever you call it, everyone has done business wherever their homes were ready, wherever they were under construction. Obviously not under planning stage or something, those would never go. But all which were under construction or ready to move in has been seen a lot of traction. So this shows that the kind of importance real estate has been having in India over the past many years. Obviously the last decade saw a lot of disruptions for real estate, I would say, which were some were good, some were still not very good, but at least it brought real estate into a right track, like in terms of RERA, GST, demonetization, ILFS. All these things had put in a lot of obstacles for the growth path, but I think now the path is very clear. RERA is definitely for good for the company and a real estate player, and for the buyer. So definitely I feel that the next few decades, at least next 1 decade, I see is going to be on like, I would like candidly want to see like a bull run for real estate, where we are seeing a great demand coming from every aspect, obviously residential now. But my feeling is once the vaccination drive is there has been a little bit of more easiness on the third wave, which is mulling over everyone's mind today. If once that is also gone, I think the commercial market will also definitely pick up, because once you have so much of residential going, it's like an introspection, like some going here and some going there. So after residential, a commercial market will pick up, or post commercial market, residential market will pick up. So I think overall, all in all, it looks like a great cycle, and definitely demand would come in the next 1 decade.
That's interesting, but when you mention commercial, has the investors' expectations of the yields dropped with the interest rates being so lucrative?
If it's like I would say if I'm selling a strata office, maybe a 5,000 square feet or a 10,000 square feet to an investor, they have been more flexible. They are, but if I'm looking at like a private equity firm or somebody who's like looking at larger offices, they still feel 8-9%, about 8% yield, because the benchmark is the REIT of Embassy or Raheja or anybody where currently they are mulling at 7.5-8%. So their expectation is also around those levels. And definitely if I look at any other asset class or any other investment or in an equity in a debt market, I think rented yield is a better than any other debt market. So definitely it gives us a safety, security, and a steady income with a 7 or 8% yield, which is good enough for any probably for any investor today.
So just one more question before I jump on to Ram, and he can also share his views on this. You've been pretty active in CREDAI and a lot of these regulatory things when it comes to the DP 2034 from a Mumbai real estate perspective. October to March was phenomenal from a Maharashtra perspective with the stamp duty reduction, and there has been hints on the market that there may be another reduction in the offering. Do you think for the viewers and audience that there may be another reduction likely?
Well, we all hope so, and we all wish and pray, because I can see every developer smile going, like from here to here if it happens. And honestly speaking, I think that's the actual right way. If you go to see, if you take out the statistics which has happened in this last year, when between October to March, like the last 6 months of last year versus the 6 months of 2019 or even 18, although the stamp duty was just 2% and 3%, but the revenues were at least 20% higher than what they had in 2019 or so. So you see, this is a given statistics and a proven way that, if you are giving, this kind of, which is right, because, there is a pent up demand today. I mean, last year was like a pent up demand, and now there is a real demand which is coming. And if this push continues, I think the turnover cycle will really help more, entire real estate market move. And with a market of real estate moving or a residential cycle moving, I think 280 other industries also start moving indirectly. So that's like a big push which the government should see. As far as I know, I don't think the government honestly is in a mood to continue to give those discounts right now. But we, as CREDA MCHI or CREDA National, everywhere we are pushing to see that we really are requesting government to please give this push, because of these COVID waves which are coming and these things, uncertainty is triggering over everyone's mind. I think this push will help everyone. So, but not a very positive answer from the government so far.
I would sum it up that you should continue buying when you're ready. Don't wait for these incentives. If they come, you're lucky, but it's still a lucrative time. Now, would you agree? You had an experience in international markets where you've studied architecture. You've written on architecture and investments, which is very inspiring. And I think even during the pandemic, you always believed that this is one of the safest investment options as real estate. And you have some of the finest developments in the most sought after addresses, which is Khar and Bandra. How do you see that residential market revival happening? Has there been a demand that's picked up this after the second wave? How do you compare it to the first wave?
Good evening, everyone, first of all, and thank you for having me here. And to start with, Dhaval was bang on point with everything I said. Totally agree with him on those points. Yes, there has been a great demand in the residential space, especially in the luxury real estate space. Luxury, so over the last 12 years of me coming back to India, I've never seen this kind of demand in any of our projects. Having said that, we had an online digital launch that we actually broke ground, one of the largest redevelopments of the Khar Bandra neighborhood, about 2 lakh square feet, on February 2020. Now, the minute this project kicked off, our planning was that before the rains, we should be out of the foundation. First month of the pandemic, everyone was worried. They didn't know what the future was. Nobody had, where is this going? Everyone's in lockdown. But as even Dhaval was saying, as things eased out and businesses restarted, each developer here slowly realized that this boom and this, the whole concept of original roti kapda makan, the way it's come back, has not been seen in the last decade or so. So we've seen a fantastic punch in the sales. We've overshot our projections. We never expected to do this kind of sales over the last year or so. And definitely, as you all were saying, the government, the stamp duty reduction was one of the big factors. If it comes back, it will be great for all of us. But irrespective of that coming back or not, we've seen even after the second lockdown opening up in Mumbai, there's a great demand and great traction for residential housing.
Ram, tell me, who are these buyers? Are these NRIs? Because we did see a lot of foreign money entering the country where they wanted a nest in India. Or they are the domestic?
So there's a lot of domestic as well. But yes, we have seen a bunch of inquiries from NRI investors, basically who are looking to, as a safety net, to park money back home, to have one home in their country, so to say, someone who's based in Dubai or someone who's based in London, who's saying, that I want one safety home back in Mumbai, maybe for their parents or as an investment, seeing the upswing and the timing was very good. In a typical luxury home of, say, our tickets, starting from 5 crores going up to 25 crores, you're saving 5%. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So like 4% was the saving exactly from the original 6%. So on a 10 crore home, 40 lakhs is a decent saving for anybody. So we found a lot of traction from locals. So typically our buyers are a lot of corporates, a lot of people who realize that work from home is the new normal and will remain for them. People in the same neighborhood who want to upgrade to bigger homes, the 3 BHK person looking for the 4 BHK, the 2 BHK person looking for the 3 BHK. And we had, for the first home buyers, that had completely disappeared from the market, being the fact that, last few years ago, the Uber culture, today I'm working in Bombay, tomorrow I could be in New York, the next day I could be in London. Why should I lock myself down to an expensive home loan? Why should I get tied up with owning an asset here when I can rent cheaper and invest in a thing like a REIT? Yeah. And why do we get stuck to a residential asset? That the first home buyer came back, which had completely disappeared over the last couple of years in this segment.
So that's quite interesting. So you're saying the first home buyers who, and I was going to get to that question only, when I look at it from an investment perspective, the rental yield in residential doesn't attract investments. And particularly when it comes to the NRI community, when they see a 1.5-2% investment, of course, with the Model Tenancy Act now coming in, at least I know the cabinet has approved it. Even if I buy it and I'm going to live there in the future, at least I could rent it out today because I could throw out the tenant with the Model Tenancy Act. But a 1.5-2% versus say a commercial yield of 7-8%, which Dhaval mentioned, you still feel there is an investment opportunity in residential.
So it is an investment opportunity that eventually converts to owning a security and an asset in your name, with the fact that eventually you can come back and use this space as a home. So it's more about the emotional security that you're looking at in a home versus the yield and the rental. So residential real estate is a very tangible asset, right? Through the years, our parents have always said, and if you look at across, khud ka ghar hona chahiye, always buy your home. That's always been the mentality. Don't waste money on rent. So those things have always come back. It's not about the yield or the return. It's about the sense of security. And through the pandemic, we've all realized that home is your one true asset.
That's a very good point. And just on that note, tell me, you said that the 3 BHK buyer is now looking at the 4 BHK. So is larger homes a concept which is coming in?
Definitely. So the smallest flat that we've sold in our recent launch is 2,000 square feet. Carpet, RERA Carpet 2000 is the smallest flat. So we've got Jodi apartments, but the single units have not sold at all. All the units that are selling are larger units because people are looking, they're basically buyers from similar neighborhood who are looking to expand to bigger homes.
That's quite interesting. Let me bring Ravi in because, in the commercial market, it's happening the other way around. From an instrument perspective, Ravi, they've moved the rate from 50,000 to 10 to 15,000 as an investment, from 200 units to 1 unit as a trading opportunity. And the commercial yields are 7-8%. Embassy REIT, Brookfield REITs have done pretty well in the stock bourses. How do you see the commercial space from an investment perspective today?
Hi, thanks Gautam, and thanks Realty Plus for having me. Gautam, your question is quite pertinent when you compare residential with commercial. Clearly, the investment dynamics in commercial are evolving as we move on with the endemic. The pandemic has now been declared as endemic. Clearly, the latest regulation bringing down the number of units in which the investor can invest in the REIT is a very, very welcome move, just because it throws open the doors for investment into such asset classes of REIT, which is an annuity income, which is also attracting a lot of tax benefit to millions of investors, and I would say to millions of retail investors now, who want to participate and who has seen the last decade or two of really path-breaking growth in the office segment. Having said that, for the moment, I would say the pandemic has evolved into work from home and other such aspects which corporates are now strategizing the future move. However, having said that, still India saw two of the major largest investment deals during the thick of the pandemic. The Prestige Group and the RMZ Group sold off to very large global financial institutions. So this only goes to show that the investment market in the long term is quite intact. I think it's a very encouraging situation. If you carefully look at the REIT situation, the prices at which these REITs were available just pre-COVID times, and today they've all taken a beating. And thanks to the so-called negative sentiment, which some of my panelists, including Dhaval Bhai and Ram, have shared, that going forward, the office market will see bounce back. We've already seen that whenever the second wave or the first wave subsides, there's already a pipeline generated. Corporates already looking and they're already strategizing as to how they should grow or consolidate. Some of the demand drivers which are working here are cost, flexibility to scale up and down, etc. So developers, when you ask us, I think we're looking to meet the client's requirement of this flexibility. The other thing is, of course, because of the larger ticket size of investment earlier, minimum 200 units, that gave rise to a new sort of investment asset class and strata investment into small ticket size purchases, which was stitched by these strata players, and they're known to be in the market to give 7-8% return. Now with the REIT unit investment threshold coming down, it's a very welcome move for them.
On a similar note, in link to residential per se, there was this concept of work from home, and now everybody is talking about going back and in full force, and corporates are welcoming them back. Have you seen an emerging trend in terms of neighborhood offices? Smaller offices near residential presence, which is being preferred by corporates. And L&T, you have 17 million square feet under your belt, developed and developing assets. So, is there a demand of a proposition like that?
So Gautam, I would take a step back and say that the neighborhood office is a part of the larger strategy of any corporate. What corporates are doing is they're evolving their hiring strategies to ensure that, and they're all pin code driven by employees, where they come from. So for example, in Mumbai, if you have 60% of your workforce coming from the western belt and 40% from the central or eastern belt, you will for sure want to have a distributed workforce, what you want to call, a neighborhood office in, let's say, Goregaon to Borivali belt, or for example, between Vikhroli to Thane belt or Navi Mumbai belt. So in that sense, the closer you are to office, the more flexibility you give to your employees. And just the other day, I was talking to one of the CRE heads in Bangalore, and he suggested that these neighborhood offices, or whatever you want to call it, hybrid offices, the hybrid working culture is really going to be something which they are devising a strategy that they give the similar work experience, not only in their offices, but also at home and also at the neighborhood offices, what you call, because of the distributed workforce. So it's very much there. It depends on the density and the pin code analysis of every corporate, where their workforce is coming from. And also it depends on the volume. If you bucket the activities depending on the functions of the employees, there are certain sets of employees who can work from home. They don't need to be in office. There are certain others who have to be customer facing, who have to be out there in the market. So they generally want to come by. And then they're activity based. So collaboration and coming and ideating and all of those reasons will call for rotational workforce to come in. So these things will have a bent of mind on the decision of these corporates when they decide on the neighborhood offices.
Let me bring in Vivek Swain from West Coast. The West Coast has a gamut of services from finance to asset management, and some phenomenal experiences from World Trade Center in New York or the Canary Wharf. Vivek, you want to throw some light on the global perspective, primarily related to our subject in terms of investments and real estate recovery? Any market, maybe London, for example, where you have.
First of all, let me thank Reality Plus team and Business World team for organizing this event and keeping the momentum going on for the industry even during these tough times. Before I reflect on investment opportunities, let me try and summarize what all has been happening in different asset classes. If we look historically, any major event which has happened has huge, far-reaching impact on the industries and on the way people live and behave. If we go back few ages, your plague hit Europe, which hit approximately 1/3 of the population there. So the industrialization and the expansion of your imperialistic expansion is partly attributed to plague. Then your World War happens, and the whole concept of nations became much more stronger. So it's going to be very interesting to look at what COVID is going to impact on different asset classes, more with respect to real estate than going whole global on overall economy and industry. I think COVID definitely is going to have far-reaching impact on all asset classes and in different ways. And we cannot club as real estate as a one big bucket and say that is going to have this impact or that impact. And also there will be difference between your major cities versus your tier 2 towns, your tier 3 towns. So each will have its own differentiation. Looking at each asset classes, it's interesting to watch the residential, as both Dhavalji and Ramji, it's ratifying that the demand for residential is picking up. Similar is trend in other markets. Similar is trend in London. Similar is what you are seeing in New York. The residential demand is sustaining. It's not gone. Interesting point would be that the demand for more larger residential or residences which are plotted or your builder floats or which are standalone residential is increasing. Gurgaon, taking anecdotal example from Gurgaon, your sales of apartments has not picked up, but whereas your plotted developments, it's like wildfire in Gurgaon today. The plotted in established sectors in DLF, the prices have gone up as much as 50 to 80% in last 1 year, which is unbelievable. And the demand for floors, builder floors, which was totally out of the market, all of a sudden is the flavor of the month. So this is partly attributable to COVID because you want more independent space, you want larger spaces. So you are seeing a lot of people migrating from Delhi, selling off their assets and buying bigger homes and in more developed places. Coming to offices, I think offices definitely is going to see major impact. Work from home or work from, I think the markets will evolve more into the hybrid model. It's not going to be pure office driven or pure work from home. The COVID has given impetus in the technology has stepped up. Who would have heard of Zoom meetings, or who would have heard even of Zoom conferences probably 6 or a couple of years back. But today here we are sitting across Zoom and having these calls. So one of the reasons that tech companies are doing exceedingly well because they have got a lot of orders from all these corporates to ramp up their IT systems and processes. So what in offices, I think the trend would be, you are seeing working from near to your homes. I think your large floor plate offices will see maximum stress. And that's where, places like Canary Wharf, I think in London is definitely going to see much more stress. But, your city center properties in London or tech offices are going to see upswing. Similar to offices, I think what's going to become very, very important in offices is your demand for green spaces. Your energy efficient buildings, your buildings having a lot of breakout zones. So that's where, your design led offices, the design element in offices is going to become very, very critical. You need to provide facilities to isolate floors. You need places that there's a breakout zone probably at different floors as compared to only at ground floor level. So those kind of innovations will happen on your residence, on your office side. I think the worst rate is retail segment, and which we were seeing that trend anyways because of growth of e-commerce, but COVID has just accelerated that. Number of people who have migrated to e-commerce is phenomenal, and I think they are not going to come back. They are not going to go to brick and mortar. So I think the retail will see more evolution in terms of probably more towards F&B, more towards high street retail as compared to the malls. We are seeing that trend in US, probably in India, because the number of retail spaces population wise were low, so we may not see that trend immediately, but you will definitely not see a lot of new malls coming up. So the direct corollary of retail demising is emergence of warehousing and logistics. So globally, if you look at all these big investors like Blackstone and everybody, they are investing huge amount of money in logistics. They are exiting retail, but they are investing hugely in logistic and warehousing facilities. Hospitality is an interesting, at one hand you have resorts which are doing well, but city properties are doing bad. But I think hospitality is always a long lead item. The hotels don't come up in matter of 1 or 2 years. They take at least half a decade to come up. So some investment will be tapered off, but I think hospitality will definitely bounce back. So that's the overall assessment on different asset classes.
Thanks, Vivek. That's a good perspective on all asset classes. I'll bring in Dhaval again. Dhavalji, just tell me ESG, which is, I'm sure you would have read, invested and heard about it. 2/3 of global money is chasing right now ESG, even from an India perspective, which is, as Vivek was mentioning, the sustainability aspects, the green buildings or something. Do you see residential also migrating in cities like Mumbai, where health, safety, well-being, you have a phenomenal development in Wadala, which gives you that opportunity. But do you see that becoming one of the parameters basis which decision making would be done when you're buying a residential house? The greenery that's available, like the breakout zones, as Vivek mentioned, apart from only the ground floor, do I have a breakout if in a pandemic my flat is locked up?
No, definitely. See, if you go to see, anywhere in the world, leaving aside a city center where single buildings or grade A localities where single buildings will be having a priority or importance, but if you look at any extended suburbs or suburbs of any of the cities of the world, wherever there is cluster development or like a complex development, it gives an importance. It gives more the person or the buyer is willing to go that extra mile, even if probably it is at a benchmark higher than the market, because he is getting all the aspects covered in terms of security, which is prime most for every family, open spaces, greenery, so much of area around here to see how their children or their families can actually move around in a better, larger place rather than just being in a single building. Yes, single buildings are very, very important, but I think those importance are only for prime areas or city centers, which where the lands are very, very expensive. But definitely, open spaces and greenery is going to be the need of the hour for every home buyer, because let's accept it that today, be it Bombay, be it Bangalore, be it Delhi, or any of these urban cities, we are commuting at least 2 to 3 hours or 4 hours minimum of our time in our workspaces or whatever we call it, in the traffic, in the pollution and all of that. So we need that breakout zone for us also personally to recharge or energize or however you call it. So definitely open spaces and green spaces are going to be the definite need of ours. So I personally believe going forward, any layouts or any building spaces, I think more open spaces, like let's say 80% open space in a layout, will be preferred to a 60% open space in a layout. I'm just giving as an example, but this is where I think it will definitely come to. So any layouts today probably in the range of 65 to 80%, depending on the plot and everything. But that's the ideal thing which any developer would want to do.
That's a fair point, and I think bringing in Ram here because it's exactly the contrary of what's happening in Gurgaon, where there's the plotted development and the expensive land of Khar and Bandra, which is possibly going vertical, still commanding a lot of demand. Ram, what's your view in that space? And one more question related to that. I believe you own even the Khar Hinduja as a development.
So that was a corporate development.
Corporate development. So I'm saying when you see asset classes like logistics, industrial, retail, we spoke about or something. Do you see that as health also becoming a priority in terms of development as an investment asset class in India?
Definitely. I think health is one of the most important asset classes, and that's one thing I think that everybody has taken away from these last 2 years. That good healthcare, important healthcare, good access to healthcare is a must.
Yes,
even smaller, finer things like in our developments, people will start now having quarantine rooms. Right.
Correct.
So instead of just a society office and a gym, there will be a room which eventually will convert into that. So open spaces, more area, as Dhaval was mentioning, makes a big difference. So health, yes, definitely. Healthcare is definitely going to be one of the top asset classes coming out of this.
And from a Bandra Khar development, like I said, very contrary to Gurgaon, where Delhi is selling and moving to Gurgaon for plotted development. But we don't see that demand. Pandemic. Nothing is kind of.
There are a couple of things. We don't see that demand in Mumbai for our first homes, but the second home market has really seen a big upswing. So that is directly linked. It is our first home buyers who've been looking for second homes as well. So any chance you get Bombay's, everyone who has the availability at the drop of a hat is trying to reach Alibag, is trying to reach Lonavala, is trying to reach Pavna. So the second home market has seen a tremendous demand. We have some investments in second homes, which are, again, we're not selling, but even our rental classes, when you're looking at your 7 and 8%, your second homes are actually hitting that number.
I was going to get to that with the Airbnb kind of a concept, and so many other Airbnbs homegrown right now are renting those second homes for you, giving you a very good return on investment.
So there are professional companies, just to name a few, like Vista and Saffron Stay and Isprava. They're doing really well. So a couple of my assets are listed with them, and we're getting phenomenal returns out of the investment because people are just flocking to second homes. They want more space. You want greenery. You want one important thing that everyone's asking is to put high-speed internet back in those second homes because everyone's working from those homes. But coming to your point that Mumbai has seen a lot of demand in the first home segment to upgrade to bigger, but there's been also a very big demand in the second home segment as well.
That's interesting. I'm going to digress back to commercial with Ravi. Ravi, commercial asset versus holding units of REIT, which is still giving me the same return. What would be your advice? We saw a lot of younger population entering the equity market, which is left to this boom that's happened, and a lot of real estate stocks have done phenomenally well. So if you were to advise a millennial, would you tell him to buy a commercial asset rent yielding, or would you tell him to buy REIT units?
So Gautam, very interesting question. I would go for a REIT investment, clearly because the millennial or whoever wants to invest, unless they are having enough experience in commercial real estate to identify the location, identify the developer, and the quality of construction and the track record and all of that, it is very difficult, especially next 1 year to about 12 to 18 months. My personal view is that the commercial market is going to go through some disruption. When I say commercial, I mean office. That's what the REIT market offers. The vacancy levels from single digits have already moved up to double digits. These are scary times. Some of the corporates will surrender and some of them relocate from your space for reasons not known to you. It may be cost, it may be flexibility, it may be distributed workforce or whatever reason. So there's going to be a lot of disruption. And if you're found on the wrong side of investing in a small or medium size office, assuming that you have the money to do that as a millennial or as an investor, and if you have vacancy for 6-12 months, you had it because you may want to leverage that and you got to pay interest while the rentals may stop. On the other side, if you invest in a REIT, these are very large portfolios. There are 3 REITs available in the Indian market, and all of them are very large, diversified geographically portfolios. They're very transparent. They're controlled and supervised by SEBI, in that sense, very safe and secure. They promise you, to a large extent, very tax incentive type of returns of 7 to 8%. And you have professionals who are marketing those assets in terms of the developers or the institutions that are running those REITs. So I would clearly, bet on the REIT as an asset class for anyone who wants to play the commercial real estate investment going forward.
That's a great advice. Thanks, Ravi. I'm coming back to Vivek. Vivek, there's another asset class. You spoke about retail. I differ on the views on retail, but a conversation for another day. I think it's going to bounce back because there is revenge shopping that's happening globally wherever it's opened up. You have places like Hong Kong where you have 2 weeks of waiting in restaurants after the pandemic it opened up. So I think we are going to get there, and we see that already in a lot of retail pockets, though Mumbai right now has a restriction from up to 4 p.m., but you will still find waiting if you've not done a reservation. But I want to ask you that there is another asset class, because there is a lot of, the population of this country is leading to a lot of student millennial crowd, which is going into vocational training, upskilling in terms of, say, coding, software development, and many others. So the student housing, co-living, or you call it assisted living, do you think there's a market? Their yields are much better, of course. They play the similar density game. And any view on that?
All these I call as operating businesses. They are not pure play real estate. Real estate is an important investment component of it. So if they are operated well, just like hospitality assets are operating assets, they are not really real estate, because the quality of hospitality asset is function of the operator. If the operator is good, the hotel, the same asset built to same specification turns out and delivers good returns. I think similar is going to happen with all these, student housing, your other similar assisted living, because yes, there is a demand for marrying real estate with the services business. And it's going to be critical. And coming back to retail, I definitely agree with you on F&B led retail. But where I was talking about was more your other, your retail needs. That's shrinking. F&B led retail definitely is will continue to grow, because people need some places for socializing, breakout places. So that's trend definitely will continue.
Always just wanted to get your views. We have a lot of these younger generation migrant population that comes into a service city like Mumbai, which is a service economy, right? Where there is banks or financial services, brokerage, many other businesses. Now they all live in rented accommodation, shared accommodation, which due to this pandemic is no longer an option. So they've been migrating back to tier 2, tier 3 cities where career opportunities are restricted compared to being in Mumbai. Do you think that would lead to demand for this co-living kind of a concept, wherein as a developer, would you develop a building which would be only from a renting perspective to corporate employees?
So
any thoughts?
My thought is, I'm just giving you as an example, service related, as we were just discussing, service related asset classes of real estate are going to be the next need of the hour, especially in cities like Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi, and primarily Mumbai, because the space, land is very scarce. Point number one. Secondly, if you see, the start of this is today with co-working and entrepreneurial offices, which have, according to me, probably will have the best time in the next 2-3 years going forward. And I also see that, in the times where, today Bombay lacks the kind of education thing, but definitely in cities like Bangalore, in cities like Delhi, where there are large universities and, those kind of things, definitely co-living will also be student accommodations will be on a uprise. But for a city like Mumbai, co-living will be the need, because service in industries. So whatever, it's going to be like a mini hotel. So you're just staying in your own house, but you're getting the entire services of a hotel, like, as if you're staying in a Marriott or Grand Hyatt or whatever you call it. That kind of services where these co-livings will offer, and that will be the need. So I think that there's going to be a lot of marriage between real estate and service-led companies, which will give a rise to co-living, will give a rise to co-working spaces, entrepreneurial working spaces, and to an extent, at least I would say in a city like Bombay, student accommodation. Because, even though land being scarce, but, there is not too much of a concept of a hostel living in Mumbai. But I think if there is a brand coming in, if there is these kind of services coming in, which you see today in London, which you see in, New York, those student accommodations are like, top of the class and what that if this comes in here, it will be a game changer. And definitely next 3-5 years we will see. And we as a company definitely are in exploration mode. At least we started off with leasing one of our assets to a co-working space or an entrepreneurial office space, but we are now also looking at co-living as an asset class where we would want to do a tie-up with a brand to really offer those kind of services and bring into one of our projects.
No, that's a great example because I'm aware of your co-working that you've done, and that co-working has been very successful with you because during the pandemic, they filled it up with the finest names from the Tata groups and many other companies.
I think absolutely, the last 6 months, I don't think any commercial asset has filled up, but, that one particular building has filled up to at least 75% in 6 months. Then I don't think any other, I would say in terms of 200 to 300,000 square feet being filled up in 6 months is something which probably not a normal commercial building would have been able to do.
I think the final words from Ram on a similar space in Bandra and Khar, again, there is a lot of these millennials who live in these shared accommodations, right? These are the same migrant population. There's a cosmopolitan lifestyle which kind of drives them. Now, the pandemic is leading to a situation where either they've gone to tier 2, tier 3 markets, or their parents are saying there is no question you're going to have a shared accommodation anymore. How do you see that changing the investors' intent to invest in these markets?
So, to battle this very point that you raised in our ongoing development in Bandra, we just explored a studio apartment for the first time and a 1 BHK. Now, ticket price would drop down to say a 1.5 crore investment and a 2 crore investment. But within 1 month, we got sold.
Sold out, I'm sure.
Because they want to still live in the heart of the city. They want their own place. They want their own privacy. And it's a good rental yield.
No, that kind of brings back to the pertinent thing, which most of the panelists prior to us also, the power panel, as I say, have been speaking from Vipul Runta or Khushru, who said residential is back, that given the population, the urbanization, the purchasing power that's been increasing from a country perspective, the residential space for the next 2 decades, primarily from an investment asset class, looks very promising. And as Agarwal ji mentioned prior to us, that it can be sliced and diced to right-fitted basis the demand. And unlike buying a Mercedes, you give a very good example. When you buy a car, you don't buy it basis per square inches. But when you buy a house, You want to know the per square footage. I think that concepts are coming in very well.
If I can jump in here, I think that was a fantastic concept, and that line, I think every developer and everyone in real estate really held by that. Why do we bullet it down to square feet? It's about a lifestyle. You're buying a lifestyle. You're not just buying that square inch.
So and Vivek could probably confirm it to you, in North India market, it works pretty similarly. They tell you that from this corridor to the end that you see is your space, right? So let's not get into what is carpet and what is chargeable. This is what we are renting it out to you.
Now, when we launched our project in Bangalore, we didn't price it on per square feet. We priced it per unit, and each unit was priced differently, depending on the location and everything. I'm talking about Four Seasons residences in Bangalore. So
that's what I'm saying. So there is a market, and we see it across markets. Like you said, a one BHK in Bandra, one studio apartment, in Bandra, sold out within a month's time. If you go towards south, there are products that still sell. If you go towards eastern corridor, Wadala, because of the CBD of BKC, is the most sought after market today. And I think every micro market has a demand depending on how you right size and basis the clientele that you're catering to. Any final thoughts from a perspective of real estate? Let's assume there is no third wave, and even if there was a third wave, would you say, and each one of you could comment positive, negative, or neutral from all asset classes perspective as an investment asset class?
I think for investors, will be speaking more with respect to the retail investors and not commenting on the institutional investors, because there's a whole range on that. For retail investor, I think the exit should always be a paramount option. And that's where probably the REIT is always going to be a very good option, because the exit in REIT is very, very easy and you can invest fractionally. Second asset class probably my choice will be still residential, again, because you control that asset and you can self-use if need may come, and you can always, there is always going to be a demand for that. You can always sell it easily. Whereas if you're stuck with any other asset classes, it can be a really bad option.
Ram,
so my take would be definitely residential, because residential, I would not say, for us in India, residential is like a roti kapda makan. It's a necessity. It's not like something I'm buying as an investment. So we are a very emotional and a land-driven people, at least, entire India per se, I would say. So definitely for us, we don't look residential as an asset class for investment, but as an asset class to stay, where for our protection and our, security. As far as returns and definite investments, my take would be second would be commercial. For starters, as Raviji rightly said, for anyone who's millennial, who's wanting to get it, I think REIT is the best option. You have it's like a coupon or like a share you can buy today, sell tomorrow, whatever it is. You get to know, and once you reach to a level, probably you invest in a rent yielding asset, or probably on a like a coupon basis or yield basis. So I think that is going to be the game changer. I would see if you see entire real estate listed companies all over India has been doing phenomenally well. So that because people are seeing that bounce back. And my take also would be retail will come back, but I don't know how much or how big, but because we're not too much into it. But I still feel, people, as you rightly said, revenge buying, binge buying will come in place in the next 6 months, or, hoping that there is no third wave. But I think overall also, even though if there is e-commerce, even though there is everything of the digital world, but I think touch and feel is something which everyone wants to get satisfied to look and then buy. So I might take is retail would also be the next in the line of number 3, but definitely residential, commercial, and then retail.
I would definitely go with exactly what Dhaval said, residential housing. It's of course it's we're very close to it, but also from a fact that we've seen the fact that nothing can replace your home, right? Yeah. Your home is your home, irrespective of which strata you're from, irrespective of which community you're from, irrespective of which neighborhood you're in. And there's a sense of belonging which is extremely high. There is no logic in some of the real estate in terms of 5 minutes away, our bed, literally Khar and Bandra, we see a variation between 30,000 rupees to 1 lakh rupees.
Correct.
Right next to the station in Khar is say 30 to 35, 40,000. Going all the way to C crosses 1 lakh. And the distance is nothing, right? Correct. It is all about the emotion. So it's not about that. It's about knowing where you're buying, what you're buying, to understand what the real micro market is. So real estate is a very, very micro market game. You have to be able to understand where you're investing. So I would tell any investor, no matter what you're investing in, whether it's a second home, whether it's retail, whether it's an office, whether it's luxury residential or affordable housing, understand the market and understand the actual demand. Because there are a lot of people who come to me and say, "Oh, मुझे खार में ये deal मिल रहा है, 30,000 में मिल रहा है, खार का rate तो 60,000 है." But that's not the point. 2 lanes away, the rate changes completely. So understand the market. It's very important to understand where you're investing and what you're investing.
Vivek, it's like Gurgaon to Udyog Vihar. I'm just saying from an example perspective, or Sona Road and extensions. But Ravi, your views?
No, very quickly. I think everybody has given their views, but the least, I'm just going to look at this as investment in asset class and what's the least positive to what's the most positive in the next 12 to 18. So the least positive to me is retail, and this is all due to the ongoing disruption in that space due to the uncertainty today. The next less positive is of course commercial, again due to some of the disruptions. But REIT is a great long-term asset class factor in. I would put a tie in the most positive between industrial, what we call warehousing today, and residential. Of course, both of them as an investment asset classes cater to different investment objectives. But warehousing has a long runway ahead, a decade or two ahead. So that could certainly feature in the most positive investment asset class. And residential, for the simple fact that 2014-15 saw peaks, and then since then we've just been waiting for the lowest step to get over. 2019 we thought we were going to recover, green shoots were seen, but then COVID happened. So 2022-23, whenever the recovery happens, it will be 8-9 years down from 2014-15 peak levels. So it's about time that residential will certainly move up, and looking at whatever work from home or disruptions that are happening positively for residential segment. Yeah.
Well said. I think thank you everyone for the panel. I think we all possibly agree, and I agree with you, Ram, Dhavalji, Vivek, everybody, that the roof at the end of the day, from an emotional aspect perspective, gives you the maximum comfort in any of these pandemic epidemics which is owned by you, right? So residential, of course, takes the cake from that perspective. Sapna, back to you.
Yeah, I think after listening to the entire panel, I think we can say it's a K-shaped recovery for real estate also. While some segments have suffered more, others have actually gone up and done really well even during pandemic. And all the speakers, after listening to them, very positive sentiments, and it shows that real estate remains a very lucrative market for investors, whether it is retail, whether it is institutional, or even end user. Especially housing, as Dhaval and Ram has said, that how micro markets matter the most. How they can influence the investing decisions, and Ravi Ahuja and Mr. Vivek Soin gave us an overall perspective. So Gautam, what are your closing comments? How would you close this session?
So I think my closing comments are that real estate, and we've been seeing it for decades together, you can't commoditize it, as Agarwalji just mentioned it. It is eventually, Vipul Rungta also mentioned a very good point, right? It is the most expensive thing that you would ever buy. And I think Dhavalji and Ram also mentioned that the feel and touch when you do it, whatever tech may come in, and I think Vipul also mentioned we are the least tech adoption when it comes to from an industry sector perspective. So from an asset class perspective, from an investment, a peaceful sleep perspective, I think it's one of the best investments, and residential, of course, takes the cake in those.
Okay, fantastic. So that was our final session of the day, and some very valuable views that we got from our eminent panel here. So thank you so much for concluding this investment summit on such a high note. Thanks Gautam, thanks Vivek, thanks Mr.
Thank you Gautam, that was very nice.
Thanks Ram.